Hey folks, Russ Bailey here. It's time for another Brushpile Fishing, the video podcast. I'd like to remind you the Brushpile Fishing podcast is brought to you by Bob Cycle in Sydney, Ohio. They have everything you need. ATVs, get down there, check them out. Again, a big thanks to Bob Cycle. And we've got, as always, a special guest today, a new sponsor with our show. And I've got to talk with the owner, Chris, several times. Stan Slip Bobbers is on board with us now, and we'll be right back with Chris. We're going to talk some slip bobbers here on Brushpile Fishing, the podcast. With us right now from Stan Slip Bobbers. Chris, how are we doing?
I'm doing wonderful, but how are you doing?
Good, man. Is it any warmer in Indiana than it is here in Ohio?
Well, I don't know about warmer, but at least the sun's shining today, so it always makes you feel a little bit better when that sun's out.
I'll tell you what, we've got sunshine today, and then I do the announcing at the high school baseball games here in town, and we've got a game tomorrow, and it's looking like it's going to pour down rain for the next 3 or 4 days after today.
Yeah, it's about the same weather we're in here.
I tell you what, man, Chris, I want to talk in general about some of the bobbers that we have, especially some things that we've worked on. But can you give the folks a little history about Stan Slip Bobbers?
Sure. Stan Slip Bobbers has been around since 1958. It's always been a family-owned company, developed and by the Stanifer family down in Bremen, Indiana, and then it's a bobber that I've used since I was a little kid. And my dad and I had the opportunity to purchase this company back in 1999. So we jumped on that opportunity, and we've been running this as a family business ever since. It's been my dad and I for a number of years, and now I'm getting my kids involved in the business as well. So it's a nice little business, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
So it started out as a family business, and it's staying as a family business.
Exactly. So so everything's made here. Where the company's run out of South Bend, Indiana now. Basically, it's run out of my house. I'm sitting at my desk where I make a lot of bobbers. So and then the kids help me out by packaging them, and then we get them out the door. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to talk in general about a few things that we've got going with crappie fishing, but I've got several of your bobbers here in front of me. Actually, a lot of these are a lot bigger. These didn't start out as crappie bobbers, correct?
No, I think we've really never focused in on the crappie industry, and to be honest with you, I didn't have any idea the size of the crappie industry until 6, 7 months, 8 months ago when I started getting into it a little bit, and have had some wonderful people helping me out. But yeah, we have a wide range of products. So we have anything from we have 3 or 4 styles that are on a 3-inch stem. And then 5, I think, that are on a 6-inch stem, and anything from real small, what I would call a pan fishing bobber, just the 50 here, all the way up to this is our 53J.
Time out. Let's talk about that one right there, Chris. What do you use that for?
Well, this is up here in Indiana. We're not too far from Lake Michigan. So in the spring and in the fall, there's a lot of guys that will fish alewives and live bait for the salmon run off the piers up here at Lake Michigan. So this is a great bobber for, I would say, your large game fish. Anything from even bass. Live bait fished under this. It's big enough that the live bait, you can fish a pretty good chub under it, and it's not going to take it under. So this is the biggest bobber we sell. So muskie, northern, any type of your larger game fish, this is a good slip float for.
There you go. So what I want to do now, and folks, we're going to have a close-up of some of these. I want you to see all the different styles, but I want to talk about, Chris, the first time that we ever met, we were at the Columbus National Fishing Expo, and you actually came down in our booth, and we got talking. And like I say, I just met you that day, and I'm a guy that I like using the smallest bobber that I can get away with that'll hold up whatever size jig head I'm using.
Yep.
And we get a lot of cold fronts here in Ohio, and the lakes around my area, they were hand dug, so they're 6 foot deep. They're shallow lakes. There's no drops, ledges, and it just seems like the cold fronts really affect those shallow water fish more so than in deeper water. So you and I had a good talk, and I, I told you how much I like dock shooting, and one of the things, folks, when those cold fronts come in when you're dock shooting, normally, and Chris, I told you this, normally we'll fish about 18 inches here in the spring and the fall when we're shooting under docks or shooting under pontoons. Those fish like to concentrate about that level. And I'll use a peg cork. Crappie magnet makes that trout float. I'll use that, it's pegged. But when those fish go deeper, and a lot of times the cold front will push them down, when they go deeper, you don't want to use a peg cork because you may have to get this far. Well, normally, if I'm shooting, that jig has to go and the bobber has to follow. Well, if I've got this much space, it's not going to work. You're going to get caught up in the pontoon. I had tried everything, and the problem is if I shoot without a cork and they're not active, okay, it's only going to be in the strike zone for a short time, and they're not chasing that bait. When those fish are locked up in these shallow waters, they will not chase it. So it's hard to get them to hit. You've got to hold that bait in place. I tried everything with the regular, I guess you call it pegged things. We use toothpicks or whatever. I tried a lot of different things. The problem that I ran into was either, I'll show you here. And again, this is, folks, what we went over at the show that we were at. But I had that regular cork, and either the line where it comes in a jig would get caught up in the bottom of that after so many casts, or the line would actually cut through the styrofoam. So what would happen, the line would get caught, so when I shoot under there, I couldn't get it to drop. It would do it for a couple times, but then it would get stuck. So we discussed that, and I'm going to be honest, Chris said, let me work on that. He said, I'll get back with you. And I didn't know how long it would be. I figured a couple months, we'd get back together. Within about a week, I get something in the mail. Chris says, try these, let me know what you think. And I'm going to tell you a story, folks. And you folks at Indianapolis, it's true. I got these like 1 or 2 days before the Indianapolis Boat Show. I was doing seminars up on the big tank. So I thought, you know what? I got up on the tank. I tied the jig head on there. And I told the people, Chris, I was honest with them. I said, look, Chris and I have discussed what we need here, and this is the first time I'm using it. I used it on those tanks. I said, so folks, if it works, you're going to be the first to see it. If it needs to go back for some research and development, you're going to see that too. And I don't know how many shots I made that day up on that fish tank, but every time that jig fell just nice and slow. And the thing is, folks, he has put these metal grommets at the top and also the bottom, because I don't want a split shot anywhere close on here. I don't want a split shot when I'm shooting. And this line, I don't know how well you see it, but it doesn't get stuck. It falls. It fell perfect. And Chris, it worked so well. I think on that Monday after the show, you were getting some phone calls already.
I was, yes. It was a pleasant surprise. I started getting some phone calls and some emails of where can I get the bobber Russ Bailey is demonstrating down at the Indianapolis show. So yeah, it's been a big hit. We finally put him after you got him kind of got him introduced. I put them on our website, and they've been selling quite well.
And I even told folks, these are not available. These are the only two that I know are made. The other thing is, folks, and I want to talk about this, the reason that I like the small cork, okay? When we have these cold fronts, and I've seen it in the South also. I'd love going to Weiss Lake because I shoot down there. I've seen it snow down there when we've been there. And the thing is, when those severe cold fronts come in and it locks those fish up, if you're lucky, they're not going to pull this thing underwater, okay? If you're lucky, you'll see that jig just kind of lay on its side. And I've got to do these seminars. I've got to see this where those fish, if they're not active, they'll come up and they'll mouth that bait and they'll stay right there. So if you're lucky, you'll see it lay on its side, set the hook. But a lot of times what I see is they won't even do that. They'll just barely move that cork about at a slight angle. When you learn to see that and you start setting a hook there, you'll catch fish that if you were using a bigger bobber, you probably had bites and never knew it. So I want one just barely big enough to hold this up, whatever size. And normally I'm shooting with a 1/32. This thing has been tested now. It works great. Chris, I wanted to tell you, we just got back from a shoot down at Smith Lake, Alabama. And we use these, and we had a cold front came in. It was 30 degrees when we started, or 24 when we started. But this thing did great. It worked out perfect for us. And you've came up with a mini. This is called the Mini, folks. So if you go on his website, it's called the Mini. But you've came up with a mini because I told you I'd like one just a little smaller. And now the mini will not hold up a 1/32. But if you go to Crappie Magnet's website, they just came up with a 64th ounce eye hole jig head that is made for the trout magnets, which are super, super small. The mini is going to be perfect. Again, if I'm using a mini or a trout magnet with a 64th ounce, that tells me those fish are not very active. So I want even a little bit smaller cork. The mini is going to do the trick with that. So
that's awesome.
Outstanding. You know, when Chris sent me the mini, he said, try this. I know you like them small. And I was pumped when I seen this, but it was just a little too small to hold up the 32nd. And then it was like a day later, Jeff Smith from Crappie Magnet introduced that new eye hole jig, the 64th ounce. And I remember sending you a text, said, don't do anything with the minis. I got an idea for them, and I think it's going to work out fine. The other thing I wanted to point out, one of the things that you have that came into play during that Smith Lake trip, what we were doing, we were casting that 6-footer with the mini, with the jig, okay? If they didn't bite that, because like I say, it was a cold front there, we would drop a long rod in with just a minnow hook and a minnow on there. So we went with a different bobber. The wind picked up. So we started out with something about like that, okay? Just a regular slip bobber. We started out, the wind started coming up pretty strong. So it was blowing this around. So I got in my box that you sent me, and you've got this one that's got a little weight on it. And I'm telling you, it made all the difference because now it stayed right over the tree. We had a split shot on, paired with that weighted thing. I tell you what, dynamite. So that trip, I can honestly say these things help us get that show that day.
That's awesome. Yeah, that being like I said, the family-owned business, we can customize bobbers as well. But that 51 there that has the weight on it is the only one we currently sell with a weight. But you know, if people want weights on any of the other ones, we can do that as well. So I'm glad that worked out for you, and it gives you a little bit extra casting distance if you're on some spooky fish or when the fish are in the shallows and you don't want to move your bait up or boat up, but you need to get your bait up closer to the shore in that shallow water. That weight gives you a little bit of extra casting distance as well.
Folks, one of the things Chris just said, I want to bring up again. He said, you know, if you've got a certain one of his bobbers you like and you want it weighted, he can do that. There's not too many companies. This is the good thing about being a smaller family-owned business, that you can get a customized bobber or customize something like that. So that is such a big plus because, Chris, I'm sure you know because you're a fisherman also, everybody has their own way or their own certain thing that they like to do. And what do they do? Just contact you through the website or something like that?
Yes, yeah, you can go to my website, which is stansbobbers.com. You can order the product right from there, and then there's an email link is there as well. That if you're looking for something a little different, I am somewhat limited on you know, I can't carry every single color and size of float that is made, but if there's something specifically you're looking for, I'll be glad to take a look at it. And you know, like like you did. Yeah, I need this small bobber, and we got something for you that seems to be working well. So, yeah, we're always open for some suggestions and feedback and what we can do to make a better product and make it a better fishing experience for you.
So, so Chris, before we take off, you got a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, because I want to bring something else up, folks. Another thing that we talked about at the Columbus show, I did a show with Leanne Six, part of the Reeling Sixes fishing team here in Ohio. It's a husband and wife. They fish together. We did a show that's going to air the first Monday of May, as a matter of fact. And outstanding show. We were pulling planer boards, the offshore planer boards. But the way that Leanne likes to do this, the two rods that go directly behind the boat, okay, because everything is set up on the back, the two rods that go directly behind the boat, she learned from Tom Hankins, an Indiana guy, that he actually pulls bobbers with those, okay? So I was explaining this to Chris at the show. I said, the problem I had, Chris, I said, it worked well. I said, we'd be trolling about 0.7 to 1 miles an hour. So the bobber's actually laying flat, it's moving. And then when a fish hit it, it would almost come up. And that's when you would start reeling in. The problem is we may have from that bobber to where the actual jigs are, we could have 40 foot of line out. So you would have to reel up to where the bobber is. And it was a hook style bobber. You'd have to unhook it, take the bobber off, then go ahead and reel the rest of it in, and then set the whole thing back up when you put it out. And I remember telling you this, and it was like a light went off. You didn't say anything for a second. I thought, man, he's thinking. And you told me, you said, Russ, I got an idea on that. And sure enough, you sent me things. Folks, we just had our Crappie Academy. And Chris, we actually got to fish together with Mike Six, which is Leanne's husband out there.
Yep.
And we actually got to try this. Now, we had again, I told you cold fronts follow us. Down at Dale Hollow, we had a cold front. But we were pulling planer boards and using the bobbers and see how they would work. And I don't have any to show you, and you don't have any more made because Mike Six kind of took off with them, didn't he?
He did. But
this is another thing, folks. It's still, I guess, in the research development stage. But can you tell the folks what, without giving a secret away, this is going to be outstanding for this because now you can reel up right to those fish. You don't have to take the bobber off, and it's going to be easy. As soon as you cast back out, it's going to set up on itself.
Yeah. So what I did after we had the conversation, you said you needed a little bigger bobber so that you could see it well, and so again, I took the 53J here, and basically what I did is I found a release clip that I put on the back end of the stem here, and it's just a little clip that is tension adjustable. So depending on what size line you might be using, so it's going to work just like a slip bobber. So you put your line through the bobber out the back here, and then you take the line and you just kind of clip it in. I guess it would be underneath it into the release. So the bobber, while you are trolling, will be kind of down, laying on the water, and then the line, if when the fish hits it, will release, and your bobber will come up, and then hopefully go down because you'll still need a slip knot above the bobber, and then that bobber will slip all the way down to your bait or to maybe a split shot or whatever, so it doesn't knock the hook out. So yeah, unfortunately, with the day we were out, we caught a lot of fish, but didn't have any hits on the bobber. We did catch a stick. So we got to see it. We got to see it work well on the stick, but not really what we were looking for. But yeah, so that's something that we'll continue to work on, and I've been in contact with Mike Six, and hopefully he'll get that dialed in for us, and we can add that to our arsenal as well.
And Tom Hankins, if you're watching this, you are going to want these. Trust me, my friend. And one of the things that I like, as I get older, I've got arthritis in my thumbs, and a lot of times squeezing stuff like that is difficult. This has different tension also, so you can adjust that to how you need it. And if you're using just 1/32 ounce jigs, or we had two 1/32 ounce jigs on those, it worked fine. And we adjusted the tension to where it would pop off pretty easy, actually.
Yep. Yeah, it should work well. I'm anxious to try to get that dialed in and get that on the market.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait. I'm going to get with Leanne or Mike, and I want to get another show this year using that. And I think it's going to be outstanding for this because there's a lot of people that actually pull with the bobbers, and this is going to be it's going to be worth its weight in gold for them. It really is, especially if you're a tournament angler. Just think over an 8-hour day how much time that saves you on the water.
Yep. Yeah, and it's yeah, I think anytime, I mean, you deal with having to release the boards, your planer board system, but anytime you're messing around with the line or losing slack in the line or keeping tension on your fish, you have a chance of losing that fish. So if we can get this thing dialed in, it'll be just like a regular slip bobber, and it will go all the way down, and you won't have to mess around with trying to take something off your line.
Chris, I understand you also have some balsa floats.
Yes, they're still in the test phase, but we have prototypes. Again, in helping out when I got involved with brush pile fishing and some of the other guides and professionals. They used our normal line, our stands line, but they said they really would like a balsa float, something I
Mm-hmm.
really have never looked into. So went to work and found a supplier to turn some balsa floats for us. So hopefully in the next 30 days now, we're into April, we'll have an introduction of 3 different sizes of stands balsa floats here. You can see there's just one of the sizes there. Um, and we have 3 different sizes. We have, and they're stamped on the balsa float itself. Um, the 18, which is going to be our 1/8 ounce size. Our 14, which is a 1/4 ounce, and then a 38, which is a 3/8 ounce. So real excited to add these to the stands line and get those really more sensitive, I guess, is the word I'm looking for there, for those fish that are like you were talking about earlier, that don't necessarily take the bobber down; they just move it a little bit. The balsa floats are going to be a little bit better for the deep water guys that are fishing down at Dale Hollow, and
Mm-hmm.
when you have
Corey
those
Thomas.
fish that yeah, exactly, Corey and Preston, and that are those fish just aren't going to be aggressive and take that bobber down, but they're just going to move it slightly. That they're real excited about the balsa line.
Tell you what, the crappie fishermen are going to keep you busy, my friend.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a busy summer, but it's all good, and it's when anytime you can get involved in a sport like fishing and have some fun and meet some great people, which I've done along the way. It's well worth the time and that you're going to spend here putting bobbers together.
There you go. Well, Chris, is there anything you'd like to add before we call it a day here?
No, I guess the only thing we didn't talk about is what makes stands different, and that is the metal grommet. You mentioned it there briefly, but you can kind of see the metal top and the metal bottom, and the metal piece in the bottom is removable. So we got protection on the top of the float, of the top of the tube, and then you thread your line through there. You got your little piece, bottom piece that comes out here, and then put it back in, and there's protection at both ends, and that's really what makes stands work different than most other slip bobbers that are on the market. You don't need a plastic bead. All the plastics are eliminated, and yeah, so that's kind of the stands. We call it the stands difference, and um, that's what kind of sets us apart from other slip bobbers that are on the market.
And I can tell you they work because I've got to use them now. So outstanding. Well, man, I sure appreciate you joining us. Again, give the folks the website if they want to make an order.
Sure, it's standsbobbers.com.
There you go, folks. It don't get much easier than that. Give this man a call if you've got an idea or whatever. Get you some slip bobbers ordered. Spring is right around the corner. I know down south it's already starting to warm up. We're still cold here, but it's right around the corner. Fishing season's here. Chris, I appreciate you joining us, buddy.
Russ, I appreciate your time and everything you've done to help me out, and it's a pleasure being with you today.
If you have the time, because I know you're a busy man, when we get to do that show with either Mike or Leanne, where we're using the new bobber, if you have time, would love to have you on the show with us.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love to do that.
All right. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Chris is a great guy, great company. Give him a try. You will not be disappointed. And again, before we take off, I want to thank Bob Cycle in Sydney, Ohio for sponsoring our podcast. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. We'll be back again with Brushpile Fishing, the podcast. The new Brushpile Fishing Show companion app will change the way you watch a show, but more importantly, it will change the way you educate yourself on crappie fishing. This is so much more than just an app. It will be your go-to source for weather, brushpile fishing shows, crappie fishing tips, and your own handheld logbook. There will also be contact information for guides from past episodes, special offers from our sponsors, and tips that range from simple to advanced. Download the new Brushpile Fishing Companion app. It's free for Android and Apple users. It's everything a crappie angler needs. Make sure you check that out.